going on, guys? Welcome to the next part of my tutorial series, Revit architecture to 3ds Max to Unreal Engine 4. Again, I've made this series because I feel that sometimes tutorials leave certain parts out, basics of how to go from one program to another. So I figured I'd make this workflow to kind of make it easier for people. I've learned a few things that are common across the board, so let us get started. Now in the last video, I told you about sizing, unit scaling, things like that, adding materials. I would explain in this one. And you want to make sure you optimize things so that they run well in your game, but at the same time still look good. So unless you're just doing architectural visualization for small areas maybe, or just for screenshots, pictures like that, you want to optimize everything. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Alright, so first off, I'm going to explain to you, I have these UV unwraps on here. The reason I have these on is because I've already laid out the UVs, but I will basically explain to you step by step how I did this. So anyway, usually you want to make an edible poly out of this. Sometimes I do this ahead of time because it just saves the UVs on there anyway. Then I can do it later or collapse the stack, whatnot. I might have that a little bit confused. I haven't run into any problems yet, so bear with me on that. So anyway, the first one I put on here was this one. When you add stacks, another one goes on top of it. This is map channel 1. Map channel 1 is UV channel 0 in Unreal Engine 4. Map channel 2 would result in being UV channel 1 in Unreal Engine 4. It's just how they set it up. It's how it works in Unreal. So just to kind of clarify that, you want to make sure that you watch this when you add new UV modifiers to it. So okay, so we're on selection of polygon. I'm going to go to open UV editor. It's going to show you that I've already laid it out. Sometimes it just goes to vertices. You just have to do that to see it. Okay, here we go. These are the windows, it's glass. These are the window frames right here. Now when you have your UVs on channel, or map channel 1, also UV channel 0 in Unreal, all that is for texturing purposes. When you do it in 3ds Max, the background, how it's checkered, normally professional game designers will put in a texture palette, which will be set up in such a way that where if they know what their UVs are going to look like, they'll make it in Photoshop. They'll put the UVs accordingly on the certain textures they want. So let's say this window here, I wanted the outside clean. I wanted the outside white frame clean, like you washed it. Or maybe the other side of the window outside's dirty. So you'd have, say, down here in this section, we'll say we have 4 sections to it, 4 boxes. This would be the plastic, okay, the white. And this would be the dirty white. Okay, this would be the glass over here, and then this would be dirty glass. Don't even pay attention to the red right now when I say that, I'm just saying the background wise. Now I would be moving these over in the respectable areas depending on which way they're facing if I wanted to texture it that way. If I wanted to do real detail in it, bake it out, do all that stuff, that's probably how I would do it. But you could always change the materials later on in Unreal Engine 4, so don't worry about it. That's just explaining why the first channel is just for texturing and why it's set up like this. Okay, so we're going to go to the second channel. Again, map channel 2. Pardon, my computer is slow. So here we are. Now they're really small on this one, and the reason why is because when I flattened out the UVs, instead of doing it right here, this is how you flatten them out. So if you open up something and it's all scattered past the box, don't panic. Just click on polygon, select all the part of the model, come up here, go to flatten map in. I keep the defaults, it just works that way. Okay, so I click OK. Since I already did this, I don't have to. It would move everything in here like you saw in the last UV. Okay, you might have to adjust it a bit. Don't worry about it, we can adjust it over here. I do padding. Now 1.0 is really high. That's what makes it do this. But the other padding is 0.02. Okay, you can change that. and it'll make them smaller. You can also resize it with the scale selected sub-objects option, just actually uniform scale. And what will happen is this little triangle will appear in front of them. You hold left click, okay, hold down, or left click, and then move your mouse down, make them smaller. Move it up, and it'll make it bigger, okay? You want to make sure that they're inside this box. If they are not, it will not be done properly. So this is the safe area, the safe zone. Make sure they're inside that, okay? So I'm going to close that, go back, keep it where I had it. So that's the light map. What I just showed you is the light map. And the reason why we do that is because you want to make sure that there's no bleeding effects of shadows on other parts of the model where they shouldn't be when you build the lighting. I'm still having trouble with my own custom models in certain areas to keep from the bleeding effect. Sometimes I'll have it completely, almost perfectly UV'd, because you're never going to get a perfect UV on models. It's just, you always have a little bit of something going on. But for some reason the shadows didn't look right. Well, again, I'll show you in another video how to change the light map resolution so that it may fix most of the problems. But you get the gist of the idea. It just takes practice. Okay, so that's out of the way. I'm just gonna get rid of these UV unwrap commands here. I did this a while ago. Okay, so now just back to a simple editable mesh. You don't have to do it this way. I'm just doing it for tutorial purposes, but I usually do the UV mapping after I optimize it, so just keep that in mind. What I'm about to show you, I would do this first. Alright, now see up here in the corner, it says polys, vertices, frames per second, this is basically what you want to do. You want to lower these as much as you can without destroying the detail for games. If you have it too high, all these assets together are going to run your game down, okay, a lot. So the way to activate this, if this hasn't already been activated in your view, push 7, make it disappear. Push number 7 again, at the top of the letter numbering, not in the numpad, in the middle of your keyboard. Here at the top, number 7. Alright, so that's done. That will give you an idea of how many vertices and polygons you have. We'll select this, right? I'm just going to show you the steps. I'm not really going to do them because I've already did it. So what we would do first is, after we've converted it, or we could leave it this way too, it doesn't really matter, I haven't had any problems. You want to go to the optimizer modifier. Now what this does, it drops the faces and the edges. Vertices are the edges, faces are the polygons. So it's just a threshold, right? So if you drop these, those will go down significantly. You can mess around with it to see what works best for you. I would also do it on level 2, level of detail. That's what LOD means. So if you ever see anything of LOD, it's level of detail. Level 1, level 2. I'm guessing what this means is, like, when you get farther away from an asset, it will drop to level 1 detail. Okay, closer up will be level 2, So when you optimize it, and when it changes as you get farther away from something, like say in a video game, you see buildings change a little bit, but they're just dropping the detail, level of detail. So it goes from one level to another. That's what I think they are. I could be wrong on that. But anyway, so we got that. Let's say we messed around with that. The next thing we want to do is go to Pro Optimizer. This will work even better. What it is, you have vertex percentage and vertex count. Vertex are the lines and everything. So what you want to do is drop the percentage. First you got to calculate. And when you calculate it, it's going to show you the same number here because it's 100%. When you change that, click down here and it'll automatically recalculate and it'll drop some more vertices. But watch the model. Be careful it doesn't delete parts of it when you take away too many vertices. Because that's what connects your model. That's what makes the polygons, okay? Each polygon, like this is a polygon, has 4 vertices. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So anyway, let's say that's what we did. Okay, boom. Now it's down to 172 and 100 over, let's say you had a few thousand polygons, a few thousand vertices. You just optimized your model. And that's how people will optimize their models from high poly to low poly. It doesn't always work this way with organic modeling, because if you do animation, it can cause problems. So there's other methods, again, other programs. So there's many ways to do the same thing in these programs. Just do whatever you feel works best for you. So again, I'm gonna go back. All right, so now you're probably wondering, why is the window green and blue? Well, let us explain this. Now, I'm gonna go into the material editor. Okay, I have some colors here already for my last project. So what I'm gonna do, and this is really important, when you have a lot of detail like this in a window or an asset that you make, you want to make a solid color of it first. Think of it, if you've ever seen anyone paint miniatures, they'll coat it with a color, a solid color first. They want it lighter, they'll do white. If they want it darker, they'll do black, whatever, but they always coat it with a color first, okay? So that's what I'm gonna do here, and then you add the detailing later, okay? So instead of having to click all this later after changing this blue and this is gray, you want to change all this green, just, you know, take the whole thing, turn it green. Well, in my case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the whole thing red. Okay? The whole thing turns red. Now, the thing is why I'm doing this, adding materials to it before I export it, is because the more materials you add to a model, it tells Unreal Engine 4 that there's more material slots. If you just leave it red, that's one material slot. That's all it's going to register in Unreal. If you add more materials to different polygons, it's going to say more material slots. And that works great for material instancing, blueprints, and coding. Let's say you wanted to change the textures of an inside of a building. Say it's like Silent Hill. Okay, it starts getting all, you know, dark outside, sirens going, things change. That's perfect for that situation when you want to do blueprints. If you don't know C++ coding, blueprints work too. You need to know a little bit of coding to be able to understand blueprints, but you don't have to type all the coding. Okay, so this is what will happen. I will keep this red. I'm going to go to under editable mesh. I'm going to expand it. Go to polygon. Now I'm going to actually make this bigger. I have realistic shading right now. I'm going to actually change that to shaded so it doesn't take up so much memory. Moves around better. Okay. So now that's red. The red will represent the outside of the frame. Again, it doesn't matter what the color is. You can change it in Unreal Engine 4. This is just to give you an idea of what I mean. So now I have it selected on blue. Select one polygon. I know it's hard to see because I picked red. I probably should have picked blue to do this, but that's selected. I'm going to hold Control. When you hold Control, you can select multiple polygons, multiple objects. Left click again, there's two polygons selected. Now that doesn't mean the backs are selected because there's two window panes. Select that, it gets darker because it's technically glass anyway, as it was exported from Revit, but they're selected. So just trust me on that. Now we drag blue into it. See? Bam. Now the window panes are a different material on the model. So you can sit here and add different materials, material instances in Unreal Engine 4. And it will save this to the memory of the file. So if you ever have a problem with bringing in a 3D model and you're like, oh geez, I wish I could edit more of the parts and just put in my own materials in Unreal Engine 3, or if you're, you know, familiar with UDK even, Unreal Development Kit, you can do it on that too. So that being done, you would then export. Okay, you can export as OBJ. If you have multiple pieces of the model, you could export as OBJ, then re-import it, and it will ask you if you want to, you know, a few options at the top will say you want to import as a single mesh. You can do that. Sometimes that's better, sometimes it's not, depending on what you need to do it for and how you've set up everything. I do it sometimes because if I have multiple parts of a model, I don't want to bring in multiple parts like that into Unreal if I don't have to. I want to reduce vertices, so you know, just make it one single mesh, then you can optimize it, and you can still select polygons, so you'll be able to do the same thing. So let's just go to export. Now I have it 299 central big window, okay? But I'm gonna say demo, just for the purposes of saving it. Now the FBX units and setup's going to pop up. A lot of people will skip this. Okay, a lot of people close geometry, go to something else. Well, it depends on what you need to do it for. You also want to triangulate. Sometimes, you know, it doesn't triangulate properly. Then again, you might not want to do it. I forgot what the reasons were. I'm trying to remember everything here. Smoothing groups will just make things appear more smooth. They're not actually smoothed out, but on, you know, sharp edges and things like this for a window, you might not necessarily want to do this. You can. Unreal will warn you about it and say you might want to enable that, but it all depends on what you're trying to do it for, so it won't really have too much of an impact on it. Now we're going to go down to units. This is very important. Click on automatic. Okay, if you don't, even if you put centimeters, they won't come in properly. It just, I don't know why, but it does. That's what it does, to me anyway. I've experienced that other people had the same problem. Now again, if you want to select different units across the board instead of centimeters, meters, feet, you can do it here as well, but you want to make sure they all match. So I'm doing centimeters. If you're making huge buildings, architectural buildings, you probably want to do yards and meters and things like that. You don't want to do centimeters and stuff, but since this is smaller, that's what I'm doing. So automatic, select the unit type. Down here, another thing a lot of people are not realizing, they're having errors. Sometimes you won't. I guess with the new builds of Unreal Engine, they may add support for FBX 2014. But right now we're going to select 2013. By default, when you install Autodesk 3ds Max 2015, this will be selected. You want to select 2013 just to be safe. Okay? Just click OK. Done deal. See? That's simple. You've just UV mapped your model, you've added materials, and you've sized it. Now I'm going to show you one more thing. Actually, two more things. This is the pivot. Okay, this is the axis point at which it will spin, turn, and move when you bring it into Unreal Engine. I've already set this up so that it's in the middle bottom part. Okay, I'm going to get out of this. Here you can see from different points. You want to make sure that's underneath. You want to make sure it's centered. You don't want it flying off on the side, so when you try to turn it Unreal, it just doesn't turn right. It's frustrating. Once you do this, you select off of that, okay? And this is what you do. Down here, make sure that this is selected. Select and move. To center this, let's say I move this over, okay? Oh no, I moved it. What am I going to do? Oh, this is what you're going to do, sir. This is what you're going to do. Centers it, all zeros. And because you put the pivot point at the bottom where it's supposed to be, that pivot point will be in the center every time. Perfect. Okay, so again, when you automatically have default units set up, it makes everything easier. Also in the grid in Unreal 4, you can change the grid size, but my advice to you when you're modeling, stick with a certain grid size that if you do change the amount of how many grid snaps there are or how many squares that appear, if you do have to change it for some reason, do it in a way like, say you had 20, right? You had 20 and every time you move 20 units. If you need to drop that in half, you could select 10. If you have to drop it smaller, you can select 5. If you have to do it again, you can select 1. And if you do it this way, even when you drop the amount, you always drop in increments of 5 that will fit in, divide into the number 20 perfectly. Do it that way, because then that way you could always snap to the grid. It will always work with the modeling that you do, and everything will fit together perfectly. You don't want to go crazy on using different, grid snaps and all that, because it won't work. Same thing in a way with scaling snapping or rotating snapping. Unless you know exactly what you're doing, don't mess with that too much. But if you have to, just make sure that, again, that they kind of can divide into 5, 10, 10 or 20 at least. So that way when you size it, you have to make it wider, maybe shorter or taller, and make it skinnier or whatever. You do it in a respectable unit size that you won't go crazy with later on in the level. But if you have to change it, make sure that it can be divided into some other unit you've already used. That way everything will always snap. So again, thank you for watching my video. I was going to show you one more thing. I'm trying to remember here. I think that was it. Yeah. So again, thank you for watching. Oh yeah, one more thing. Here's the rotation snaps, snap toggle, things like that. So if you want to snap this in the toggle on here, I didn't even have it snapped. That's what you would do. Okay. This is rotation, angle snap toggle. You need to rotate it. It will snap it. So let me just show you real quick. You know, it's snapping when it turns. Okay, so let's say that I wanted to do it at a different view right here. Snaps. Snaps. Oh, let me get back there. Okay, that's just for rotation. Let's see about moving it. Oh, no, I don't want rotation, I want moving. Here we go. Here we go. Well, that's sizing. I don't want to... Something's wrong here. We'll see right here. This is how you would do it. Let me get over here again. See what I mean? It will automatically snap. 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 Okay? If you don't do that, this is what happens. Oh my god, it's all over the place. What am I gonna do? Oh, I should have listened. Should have listened to that guy, but I didn't. It's alright. Go back. Go back again. See? So when you snap it, this will show up. You want that, especially when you're sizing up the grid to match that of the unit size in Unreal. This is just basic workflow to make things scaled properly. World scale is what I like to do. Also, if you ever wanted to 3D model a picture of a building you've seen online, I'm going to show you something really cool. We'll just get rid of this right now. It's okay. I've already saved it, so I can delete it. We're going to go to plane. Okay? We're just going to make a plane from the top. It's a little bit smaller. Okay. So we just make a tiny plane. Now I have it grid snapped, right? So automatically I'm snapping. Again, I could always center this on pivot points so I could make sure that it fits, you know. Alright, so we got a little grid there, right? We'll call this texture plane. Done deal. Okay, now right here is where you want to edit a lot of the parameters before you make it an editable poly. So let's say I just kept it as a box picture. Alright, I don't have a picture right now to use, but I'll show you how you would do it. 1880, I want it there. Segments, I would put 1. If you're going to do a background, you only want it in 1 segment. That way, if you have to, you know, pan it across, it doesn't have multiple pan versions of itself. It's just one solid one. Any changes you make, you know. Alright, so there we go. I'm going to go over to the hierarchy tab. Pivot points in the middle. Alright, so it's already done by creating it. Good deal. So let's go to... I'm going to make sure it's not selected anymore. So I want to move this into the center as I had before. It's only off 20 centimeters. Everything just to make sure. There you go. So now it's perfectly centered. Awesome. And again, you can rescale this, but with the grid snap and everything, it'll scale properly to the snaps. You will now have to do this. So let's say you took a picture of a building. Now it would obviously be different dimensions and so forth, but you don't want this one. You want to hold down, and you want to go down to here. I forgot which one that was called, but give it a second. It's probably going to have to open it up. I hope it doesn't crash on me. Good. That would have been a heck of an end to a tutorial, huh? Talk about patience. Alright, so this is what you do. You want to take materials, shaded, architectural, put it out here. Sort of like how you make textures in Unreal Engine. You have a similar setup. diffuse map, shininess map, luminance. They word it a little differently in this, but you know, you get the idea. So then what you would do is you move this over. Okay. You would go to bitmap. And it might ask me. So anyway, they already got like some pictures of default in here. So these are texture palettes, these right here. So just so you know what those are. These are normals because they're the blue ones. They kind of tell where the light's going. These are the alphas. Okay. So anyway, we're just gonna pick the bark just for the hell of it for viewing purposes. So we got the bark. I'm going to select that into diffuse map. Up here, assign materials to selection, put material to scene. Okay. So this is what I'm gonna do. You take this, left click it, drag it off of here, drag it onto the plane. Now it looks like it's not showing up, it's just gray, right? You move this aside. You're probably gonna be like, oh, it's not working. Well, let me show you. Show shaded material in viewport. This is what you want to do. See? There you go. It's on it. Now with planes, for some reason, it shows the texture better on the back. I'm not really sure why. All you're trying to do is model. So let's say this is a picture of a small house, about square, a small building that had square dimensions. You could take this, okay, now we're done here. You can take this here and you can pivot it upward. Oh yeah, I gotta do the rotate snap. See, even I make mistakes. Rotate snap. So there we go, it's perfectly set up, right? And you wanted to model, say windows or whatnot. You could use a swift loop option. Try to find out here. I know it's under one of these. Not really sure. I have to set this up again the way I had it before. But if you get the swift loop option, what it does is it takes lines up and down and across, one way or the other, depending on how close you are to one edge to another. And you can add these swift loops, and what they do is like adding seams to the model. You can select polygons within those boundaries, extrude, you know, bevel, things like that, and you could shape a model off of a picture. And you can make a perfect 3D model of something you see in real life. As long as you know how to shape it, and you know anything about modular building, which would be pieces of a building, set it up in Photoshop. You could even mark what you want out of that picture, cut it apart, use those pieces and model around that. Let's find out if you can do it in a way in Photoshop so it matches real life scale, or at least if you have the plane or box you're modeling on shaped perfectly for Unreal. So I hope this is very informative. Again, sorry that my tutorial is so long, but then again, hey, it's all the information you can take in. I'm happy with it. The next one, I will do a video of texturing models, as well as making realistic textures in Crazy Bump, because I use that a lot. I do use Quixel Suite and Substance Designer, but for now we're just going to kind of do the basics. Crazy Bump makes good normals and things like that. Speculars, luminance, specularity, ambient occlusion maps. You know, you could tweak with them, and you can make normals from just a texture. So if you're not doing it the baking method, you could do it that way. You need normals and a 3D mesh, a custom 3D mesh of your own design for Quixel Suite down here. So when you learn how to use this, I'll do another tutorial on that once I start working with that better. I had one before on my channel, but for some reason the audio was deleted by YouTube because they're a bunch of dinks. They're also cool too, so you know, hey, they take my video off, they're dinks again. Yeah, so I'll show you how to do that later so you can get realistic, professionally, industry standard textures. It's a plugin for Photoshop. I have Photoshop CC. You could use it on CS6, things like that. The programs involved in Quixel are 3DO, which is a 3D model viewer, Endo, which is NDO, which is the texture, designer, and viewer. And then you have, no, NDO is the normal viewer, how you make normals and stuff. DDO is a texture viewer, so that you can design professional textures and materials within it, save presets. Then you can also go on libraries online. They call it Megascans. I think you have to have a membership with them, I'm not sure, to get that. But you get tons of submitted textures and materials from fans, leading game industry programmers and designers. I mean, it's endless. It's just freaking endless. Everybody can do this if you have the programs. If you don't, you can get demos, or if you're a student, I'm sure you can get a student version. If you can't, what I would do is try to do the same methods in this in programs like Blender, GIMP, Paint, Corel Paint, or whatever, Corel Draw. Depending on what you prefer to use, as long as you understand the principles and you can do it on that, they work across the board. For Unreal, though, you want to make sure that all your textures that you design are in the power of 2. So let's say we started at 256 by 256, go up, it'll be 512, 512, go up to the power of 2, 1024, 1024, power 2 again, 2048, 2048. So you know how it works. That's what Unreal accepts. So you want to make sure you have it in the power of 2. So no matter what image you make, even if you size it in Photoshop, go under image, resize, it doesn't matter if it warps the image, because that's all it needs to do is to accept that. You could always change the size of the material later, and if you've already installed these textures on the model in 3ds Max, it will automatically remember where the textures are in the model when you save it and export it, so you won't have to do much. So if you just texture in 3ds Max and you export those textures and put them into Unreal, and you have to, do it the power of 2, and you're like, oh, those textures are squarish, like, I don't like that. Doesn't matter. It will automatically remember where they were placed on the model. So again, that's just the way it accepts it. So, all right. Thank you for watching my tutorial. I will make another one about Unreal and designing some quality textures in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys.